Hello, my name is Jenna Brew and I am going to be talking about some of the cultural needs for our ELL students when they enter our classroom and how families and communities and schools can support those kiddos. So first, I'd like to talk about cultural influences of student needs within the classroom. I think that students need to proudly represent their culture and their ethnicity, and so a great example of this is creating student profiles and hanging them within their room. I think this would be a cute idea for a student to make a little passport of themselves, including a drawing of themselves, their name, where they're from, obviously their age, maybe a fun fact about them, and then even drawing the flag of which country they are from. I think this would be a great way to display the uniqueness within our classroom if we do have different cultures that we are representing, and so anybody who walks in our room can look at our wall and see the passports on the walls that the kids have created. Secondly, I would like the students to be able to bring their ethnicity into the classroom. I want to display this by having bilingual signs, by having signs on common objects in English, such as door, pencil sharpener, raise your hand, visual signs for students to see. I want holidays to be celebrated, that they celebrate. I want them to be celebrated inside our classroom. Their culture doesn't just need to stay outside the classroom, but it is more than welcomed inside our classroom, and I want that to be represented in my classroom. Secondly, cultural competence. I think this can be shown by inviting students to share about their traditions. Students love to talk, and I know that ELL students can sometimes be shy and timid to talk, but I would just encourage them to talk about what they're passionate about, talk about the traditions that they maybe had at their previous school, things that they did with their previous friends. I want them to share that commonality and see if other people within our class have the same interests as them. I would also like to help them understand their culture and their values, because that is something that they're not leaving and taking away from them. Yes, they may be physically leaving their culture by moving to the States, but it is not leaving them and who they are. So I want them to have a great understanding of who they are and what makes them who they are, rather than just, again, leaving it at the door. It is more than welcome to come in to our classroom and stay with that student. Next, I will talk about the social and emotional needs. I think this is the greatest need of these ELLs within our classroom. They often experience great life changes, and so first, I think making yourself aware as the teacher of some of the emotions that they're going to be experiencing and some of the situations that they're going to be going through. For example, possibly rejection, isolation, ignoring, fear. All those different things can happen to these students as they come to a new school. Often anxiety and depression and loneliness can be created from these different types of feelings that they're getting within their classroom and within their students. So as teachers, we need to remember to be advocates for them, make sure they're not getting rejected by other friends, make sure they're not feeling isolated within the classroom, on the playground, in specials, inside and outside of our classroom. We need to make sure we're not ignoring them just because they have a difficult time answering the questions when we call on them, having extra patience if it takes them a little bit longer to get to the correct answer because they're stumbling on their words. And lastly, we do not want to create fear in these students. We want to create a safe space for these students to represent themselves and speak up within our classrooms. I would also like to do a weekly check-in with my ELL students. I would do this in a simple form as like a little bit of a survey. At the end of the week, I will hand them a short piece of paper with 5 written questions already on it. Examples of those questions might be: what was the hardest part of your week? What was the easiest part of your week? How has the class made you feel? Do you need any extra help with any of the topics that we learned this week? And tell me one good thing that happened to you this week. I will ask them to provide me this in English or 50-50 of their home language and English. Sometimes if a student is speaking Spanish and they do a little bit of Spanish and a little bit of English, we call that Spanglish. And so even if they get that 50-50, hopefully we can work up to that 100% English, because when they take tests such as the Zella test, a writing portion is required. So this would be a great way for them to practice their writing skills and keeping me informed about how they're feeling and how they're doing within the classroom. To wrap up this video, I'm going to quickly talk about the support that the families and communities can provide through home language, through family involvement that binds the family together, and through school partnerships. One of the biggest things I think schools can do is create and have events that families can come together and that families can participate together with their students. This can create a relationship among the family as they're embarking on something new together as a family, and it also creates a positive experience with the school and the family in that relationship. Families can support their children by asking them about how their day was at school, asking them if they have struggles, and also practicing that English just as much as possible if they happen to know English, trying to help them with that, and just supporting them. Again, just checking in on their student to see how they're doing and making sure they're not feeling isolated or rejected or any of those feelings. In conclusion, I will talk about inclusion. In my classroom, I will show inclusion through having books showing different cultures, creating a world map, and having those passports, as I previously mentioned, hung around the world map, having bilingual decor, as I mentioned, with different types of phrases that are commonly said. I'll also have a common words visual support. So it'll have words that are commonly used in English in the child's original language and then also in English. So they can often glance up there and get that visual support and hopefully engrave that in their minds. Lastly, in the community, I would love to see a bilingual office representative. Typically Spanish is the most common second language spoke here in Arizona, so having somebody who can speak Spanish and to communicate with the parents efficiently. Again, bilingual signs throughout the school and flyers, if there's informational emails or flyers that are getting sent home to the students, just making sure that that is in the language of the children as well, so that the parents can effectively and efficiently read those to get informed. And lastly, having culturally adaptive playground equipment. Students love to play, and I think that is one way we can reach children is through play and making them feel comfortable as they play. This can also help build and foster relationships and friendships, and so having playground equipment that the children may be used to. Maybe they were used to jump ropes at their old school, or chalk, or maybe some students who come from Mexico or Spain or Argentina are really into soccer, and so providing soccer balls for them to play with, because that is something that they're used to and that is something from their culture that we can bring simply onto the playground, I think would be a wonderful idea to help support those ELLs. Thank you for watching my video.